This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network, now in its 7th year. Talk like you've never heard it before.
Hey everybody, this is Alex, and this of course is the Ramble. We'll be here until midnight tonight. Coming to you from New York, New York. The city's so nice they named it twice. That's what they always say. And as we do on Thursdays, we check in with our old friend Robert Natale. Hello, Robert.
Hi, Alex. How are you?
Bon Natale.
See.
Yeah, I didn't actually put your name here. I should put your name here, right? Let me see here. There we go. And then I go pump, and there. So everybody knows who you are.
There you go.
Yeah. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
Yeah, you didn't think you were going to make it tonight, huh?
Well, it was kind of close. We had tornadoes across central Jersey all evening.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one of them touched down about 5 miles from here.
Mm-hmm.
Others touched down along the Jersey shore, towns like Belmar and so on. Pretty destructive winds between 80 and 100 miles an hour.
Really?
Yeah. So now, mind you, I'm going to be 71 years old next month. And I've lived every day in my life in Jersey, except for time I went away, but I was a resident here all my life. And in the first 65 years, I think I've seen 2 tornado warnings, which didn't amount to shit.
Oh, really?
And we've had 5 or 6 of them in July alone.
Wow.
So, things are changing.
Yeah,
radically.
I mean, what you're talking about is a little thing called global warming.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. The people on Fox tell me not to believe it. So.
Oh, okay. Well, then it must
so
not.
I won't.
Then it must not be so. I'm sure that makes your life feel a lot better.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so so it was an interesting evening, to say the least.
Yeah. So what's on your mind this week? Anything?
So, plenty of things. First, let's start with the Olympics. At the risk of offending Josh Wheeler, who hates them about as much as I do, I just wanted to throw in some Olympic thoughts. First things first, I always felt the Olympics were sports for non-sports fans. That's just a personal.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Personal feeling.
Yeah.
Like 2-man volleyball. Water polo. My friend loves to talk about luge in the Winter Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
He says it's the only event that you can partake in while you're dead, because effectively all you got to do is lay on the goddamn thing and somebody pushes you down.
But that's the Winter Olympics.
Yeah. The summer's got some stupid shit too.
Well, I mean, they used to have ballroom dancing, but they don't anymore.
Yeah, that's right. And skateboarding has now been added. I anxiously await 2026 because I'm told that the newest event will be hide and go seek.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, something, I got to tell you, I agree with skateboarding. Okay. Because it is something that has become a sport over the last couple of years. It's a nouveau sport. But there's enough people doing it, and there's enough competition in the world in that field that I think it deserves its place in the Olympics, don't you?
Yeah, I just don't feel like I have to subject myself to watching it.
Yeah.
So I don't. I always had this sense that these events are thought up by 4 guys in a bar. And they just say, why not seed spitting? We could do one for accuracy, one for distance.
Yeah. But do you think that maybe a lot of these different events are created by pressure?
Oh, no question about it.
Pressure groups, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that, like, for instance, I don't think that skateboarding was brought into the Olympics because they wanted to keep blacks happy, because I don't see many black people on skateboards.
No.
It's a white sport.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. White suburban sport to a large extent,
I
too,
mean,
I might
we
add.
put basketball in a few years ago, so that takes care of the black sports.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing is, I can't watch events.
Oh, and by the way, we got
Yeah.
softball. We got softball for the lesbians.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. Oh my goodness. I also have a hard time watching sports, and I say that advisedly. Watching sports that are rated subjectively. Like the other night, I flipped on, and they had two women diving at the same time. It was synchronized
I've
diving.
seen that before. Yeah, that's been around for a while.
Yeah, well,
Synchronized.
okay, but this one got a 9.6, the other one got a 9.5. Come on. I feel the same way about this that you do about the Oscars, where it's a shame in a way. You watch, say, figure skating
You're
in
telling
the
me
winter.
are you telling me in synchronized diving, the two people who are synchronizing get two separate scores?
No, they get one score
Oh, they get
together.
one score together. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But still, can you really separate a 9.6 from a 9.5? It just seems like splitting hairs to me.
Well, it's subjective.
Well, that's the problem I have.
Yeah.
There are times in the winter I'll actually watch the figure skating, but I'll turn off the sound because I just appreciate the art of it as opposed to, who was better.
Well, they've had some argument about what goes on, for instance, at the Winter Olympics with some of these things, because what they do is they're scoring based on past performance,
Yeah.
right? They're not.
Right.
A lot of it is on past performance, not on present performance.
Right. And here's another tip for you.
Yeah.
Don't be the first skater. Because they can't very well give you a 10 because now, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing that can possibly be better. So in a way, your position has a lot to do with how you scored too, which
there's something that has to do with that they add into it the reputation or the what you've done before the Olympics and where you are. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, and the degree of difficulty and so on and so forth. And I don't know.
I'll tell you what bothers me. Okay, what bothers me the most about all of this is the fact that they are putting a score on a ability of somebody, and I don't like that.
Me neither. That's my point.
I think the people should do what they do, and everybody should applaud and say, "Hey, I like that better than that one."
Yeah.
But I hate this whole competitive thing. I'm sorry, I've never been a competitive person, and I mean, I'm even bothered by being in this thing with the Broadcasting Hall of Fame. Which Howard Stern railed against a few years ago, and then accepted the induction into the Hall of Fame. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, he had a lot of right things to say, like, why did it take him this long to nominate me? I mean, am I not that important to the business? And I feel somewhat the same way, and I also feel that when the thing then comes down to voting, all right, by the nominating committee and by the public, I'm going, you're turning it into a contest, and this isn't a contest. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducts people into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame by saying AC/DC and Nancy Sinatra and blah 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 and Cher and Fleetwood Mac, but they don't say, "Hey, everybody, let's vote for them."
Well, I'll go you one further. There are people that make the argument that this rock performer should be in the Hall of Fame over this rock performer because they sold more records. I always think,
that has nothing to do with it.
I always think, that means that Dogs playing poker on velvet is far better than the Mona Lisa,
because
as a work of art.
It's more popular.
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, the thing is that that there's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they induct people because they say these are the people who are being inducted this year. They just announce them. They don't hold a contest. They don't, maybe they vote among themselves to see, who they feel should be put in, but it's not a contest, and this is,
Right.
and I don't like that. It makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't feel that I've ever been in the only contest I've had is with myself.
Yeah, me
You
too.
know,
I mean,
you know?
I was a competitor as a young man. I was a competitor all my young life. I really was. But in my case, I competed in things where the winner was discernible. Like I can watch the Olympics, say for example, 100-meter dash. Somebody shoots a gun and somebody wins the fucking race. Put a medal on his chest and good for you, let's move on. Or somebody jumps the highest and it's tangible. It's something. Don't give me the sports where, people hold up cards and say, he was better than him, and I just can't.
Well, I mean, when you've got a bunch of people on a track racing against each other, you have a competition going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you have a very real competition. Nobody's voting on them or anything else.
No.
There's either somebody who runs faster than the rest, or there isn't.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right. And the same thing then holds true for any number of other sports that you could say are very competitive. Then there are the other sports like the gymnasts who are literally being voted upon by a bunch of judges who say this person's better than that person.
Yeah.
Now we've changed the whole nature of the game. It's
Right.
not like one person runs against another person. The first person to get to the finish line is the winner.
See, here's what else amazes me about the Olympics is if they decide tomorrow to do a contest for distance spitting, how is it that the network comes up with two experts out of the woodwork who can put all kinds of jargon to something as simple as spitting for distance?
Yeah.
And the question is, what do these experts do the other 3 years and 50 weeks? Do they go back to being cab drivers? What do they do? I always wonder that. Where did you come up with these
Where'd you
people?
find these people?
Yeah, right, exactly. Where did they come from?
And
there was really a spitting genre?
And none of them are people who have, in the past, done this particular sport.
Yeah.
But they judge it.
Yeah.
And what are the qualifications? Anyway, I just hate I hate competitiveness in the arts. I hate the Academy Awards. I hate the Emmys, even though I've got a few. I hate the rock and roll the what do you call it, the Radio Hall of Fame for exactly the same reason. It isn't a contest. Quality is not a contest. Right. What you've done over the years to put you to put you up there with, okay, well, let's make him let's put him up there and make him what do you call it? I'm kind of out of it tonight because we're going to court tomorrow, and I'm all bothered by that. Because now my lawyer says, oh, you might have to pay out $200,000 in past rent. Oh, yeah, fuck you.
No big deal for a legend like yourself.
Yeah, no. Well, I don't think that's going to happen, but,
well, I'm an avid reader.
I just have a hole in my head, that's all.
There you go, yeah, right.
See? I like that, see?
There you go. I'm an avid reader, and I can't stand. People know that I'm an avid reader, and they ask me, "What's the best book you read this year?"
I hate that.
Jesus Christ, that drives me crazy.
I hate when they say best movie of the year, because one's a musical and one's a comedy and one's a drama and one's a this and one's a that, and you go, how do you even judge between those?
Yeah, how do you judge? How do you compare Jojo Rabbit to Frozen? I don't understand.
Exactly.
What's the basis for your comparison? I just don't get it.
But we have this whole thing about competition. I mean, what I get sick of with the Olympics is they always put up these things. Well, the United States has won so much gold, and China is one behind us, but we're ahead. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? It doesn't matter. These are people who are going and they're giving it their best, okay? And all they care about is their personal best. They, in a lot of ways, they're thrilled when they win, but their personal best is what they're fighting against.
Of course, because it's the journey, to have gotten there and to have pushed yourself beyond limits you thought you had.
Yeah. Now, what I don't get about you, okay, is that you're a veteran gambler, right?
I'm a horse player. We don't gamble. We bet against each other. Do you know? I got to stop you.
Explain that for me.
Okay. No, I will. When you go to a casino and you play roulette, you're betting against the house. And you can't win because the house has set odds in their own favor.
Right.
So the longer you play, the far more likely it is that the house is going to beat you.
Yeah, yeah.
When you play blackjack, the same is true. When you bet the horses, you're not betting against the house. You're betting against the other horse players. The house is merely taking a cut.
Yeah.
And they frankly don't care if I win, if you win, or if three guys below us win. They don't care. They're getting their cut.
So you're betting against each other because
exactly
the more of you
right.
that bet on a particular horse changes the odds on that horse.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So you're looking at somebody who's never bought a lottery ticket in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is, to me, that's a gamble. It's just simple gambling, and I'm not interested.
Yeah, you're taking a real chance there.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
But anyway, where were you going with this point?
No, what I was going to say is that as a gambler, I was going to say I'm surprised that you're not following, the Olympics quite as much, But you don't seem like do you have that gambler's thing in you where you're in other words, are you just as satisfied when you lose as when you win?
That's a complex answer. I'll try to make it simple. The answer is, I did it for 38 years. I recently retired.
Yeah.
Because the work it started to feel like work after all these years. So I gave it up. But I would have losing days, no doubt. But my theory was I didn't look at things in terms of days. I looked at things in terms of months.
Okay.
Like I was looking for a positive return over the month, and I would always reassess, gee, you had something of a less profitable month. Why might that have been?
Yeah.
And I would then reassess like the kinds of approaches I was taking and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's what made it also interesting. It was probably the greatest intellectual exercise I've ever engaged in my life, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Because, like it's 50% science. There was numbers involved and crunching of numbers involved, but there was also the art of when to apply those numbers and in what priorities.
So let me ask you this. I mean, I had a friend who was a addicted gambler.
Yep.
Who went to GA and saved his life early.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself that kind of gambler? No. You seem to be quite.
No.
What's the word I'm looking for? You're not so much gambling as you are judging the chances of things.
Yes, and in fact, I'll blow your mind. I didn't bet the horse that I thought was most likely to win the race. Mm-hmm. How about that for sounding weird? What I was looking for was, I looked at the line on the horses, the odds. Mm-hmm. Having set my own odds, I then looked for value. So in other words, if I felt the horse should have been 2-1, mm-hmm. and I looked up on the board and I could get 5-1, I would make that bet, even though I thought there might be another mm-hmm. horse more likely to win.
Yeah.
Because in the long run, I would make a more than a decent profit. It was profitable for me for 38 years. So
in the end, I mean, do you do it anymore?
No, I retired as of November of 2019.
Okay, so you retired.
Yep.
That's probably about the time you started calling us.
Yeah, exactly. I had time. I had time on my hands.
Yeah. So you stopped doing it. First of all, why'd you stop doing it?
Because, Alex, there was about 2 hours a night, and I'm talking 7 nights a week, holidays, didn't matter how bad you felt. There was about 2 hours of a night of drudgery, just simple drudgery involving numbers, so that when the next day's races began, you were prepared. And that didn't count preparing for the actual races themselves. There were things I had to clock and monitor and take note of so that I could make adjustments.
Now, you only bet on
to races.
horses?
Yes.
Didn't bet on sports at all? Didn't bet on football teams?
I bet on sports just casually. I never really took it seriously.
So you had a specialty is what you had.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Yep. And I did seminars. I've written on the subject, part of a group where 1,000 of us, about 750 to 800 of us did it for a full-time living at some point in our lives, including myself.
Yeah.
So we took it seriously. I did, as I said, I taught at seminars, wrote on the subject.
Yeah.
So it was, it was an intellectual passion.
So in the end, did you come out ahead?
Oh, no question about it.
Really? So you knew what you were doing.
Every single year I came out ahead. In fact, Alex, for a time, for about 5 years, I was taking investment money from others and making wagers for them. The worst return on their money was 56% over the course of a year. However, I couldn't do it to a large scale because if I did, I would have effectively been betting my own odds down lower and lower, and it would have been self-defeating, if you follow.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So if you were to give me $5,000, I could do it. And the worst return in 5, 6, 7 years that I did it for other people, the worst return they got was 56%.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, overall, did you wound up making money?
Yeah, well, more than a few bucks.
So did it supply a living for you? I mean,
did for about 2 years.
Did you have to give up the job at McDonald's?
I gave up my teaching job, actually.
Really?
And did it full time. The reason I went back to teaching was because at the time my wife and I wanted to have a child, and she considered leaving teaching altogether. And so I needed to go back for the benefits. And I thought I could do both. I could, wager at night and on weekends and during summers.
Yeah.
So I returned to teaching. But frankly, the 2 years I did it professionally, I made much more money than I would have teaching.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So how did
I'm not the type that would have wasted my time, if it made me
How did
money.
your wife feel about all of this?
Oh, both wives. I've been married twice, and in
see.
both cases, they encouraged it because they knew it was lucrative, and it was also a healthy exercise in my case because it kept me active mentally, kept me sharp. To this day, at this age, my memory is sharp as it's ever been.
So
and I attribute a lot of it to that.
You had two marriages. That first marriage, what kind of odds did you put on it?
Actually, when I first got into it, I would have bet pretty big money that it would have lasted.
Oh,
but
really?
you don't win them all, Alex. You should know that.
Yeah. You're talking to somebody who, was in that.
But that was never, ever, ever, ever an issue. It really wasn't. In fact, if anything, my first wife, I was new at it, and she was wonderful about it. She encouraged me to, really jump into this. You can do this. So,
well, you and I one time thought mistakenly that the reason you weren't calling is because you said you were doing some writing, but it was just some writing. It wasn't.
It was
book.
Actually handicapping writing.
And I thought it was a book. But you thought about writing a book about this?
I actually started to, but the thing was, a lot of what I would have included was proprietary knowledge that this group of 1,000 I belong to, the Sarton methodologists, we kind of share information, share our own research, and so it would have been stepping on some toes. So I started a few times and then thought, this kind of gets clumsy, and I'm going past my rights. And so I stopped.
So a couple of nights ago, I'm watching YouTube, as I always do. I just go surfing through YouTube. It's just my only thing that I do. It's the best way to spend a couple hours. And I come across, I think it might have been, not What's My Line, but To Tell the Truth, or some show like that, some kind of game show. Or maybe it was a talk show. But the guest on the show was Jimmy the Greek.
Yep, he was a phony.
Well, he may have been a phony, but he looked a lot like you.
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, I looked at him and I
yeah.
said, God, Natalie looks a lot like Jimmy the Greek.
Sort of Mediterranean look, right?
Yeah. What do you say he was a phony? Why?
He was kind of like a professional odds maker. He, as a gambler, from what I'm told from people who knew him, he was an inveterate loser.
Yeah.
But he just kind of sold his brand as being a gambling expert. And indeed, what he was a tout, who would sell his picks. Mm-hmm. You never want to buy picks from somebody, because if they were any good, they would keep them themselves.
Right, exactly.
Why would they sell them to you?
Right.
So, yeah.
But he, I felt bad for him, though.
He kind of died a lonely man. He ran into difficulty by making a racial, insensitively racist comment.
I don't know if it was insensitive. Let me, if I remember it correctly, what he said was, the reason why black Americans are so good at athletics is that in the very beginning they were bred for strength. Because back in the days of slavery, they looked upon them as like cattle, like animals,
right.
And they did breed them many times for strength. And he claimed that that's why they do so well at sports and are so adept at it and have the strength for it. And I don't know that it was that, it was an interesting supposition. It wasn't anything racial.
Yeah. It's also, there are a lot of things that may be true that you just simply can't say over the airwaves,
Well, no, but that was the funny part about it was that was the first time I remember somebody really losing their career over something like that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah,
and I think there were far worse situations, like Cosell when he said, "Look at that little bunny run or whatever, monkey run."
He actually used monkey
run. Yeah. I always felt kind of bad for Jimmy the Greek, because I didn't think that he was necessarily saying something that couldn't well be within the realm of truth. He wasn't stereotyping anybody. He wasn't doing anything. He was just saying that they were bred. I mean, if you go back to history, that they thought of them as like cattle or horses or whatever.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do that you would get a kick out of, my second wife would come to the track with me on occasion.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite things to do is when I scoped out a race, I could kind of predict how the race would shape up. And so what I would do is, about 10 seconds before the gate opened, I would announce the race before it happened. And the people around me got spooked. In fact, we were sitting behind two old ladies, and the one turned to the other and said, "He's seen this race before." And we were just getting the biggest charge out of watching them be spooked by how did he know this horse would take the lead, and so on and so forth. And we used to get a kick out of doing things like that.
But anyway, I saw Jimmy the Greek and I said, looks like Natalie, He even sounded a little like you,
But it's not like I practiced it.
Not like you practiced it. Yeah.
No. Before we go,
mm-hmm.
I want to tell you, I went back and watched the Nuremberg trials, and I'm convinced that the people who killed the Jews in the ovens should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, but I'm also convinced Hitler had nothing to do with it.
Right. Yes,
he had nothing to do with it.
Well, the Nuremberg trials were interesting,
Yeah, I kind of remember them.
Well, I don't know, how fair were they?
Well,
I
don't know.
I mean, those guys really let's say one of them was innocent. Let's just say one of them was.
Yeah.
Didn't have a chance.
No chance.
No
Yeah.
chance.
He should have asked for a change of venue first things first.
You know, but it was amazing to me that if you look at the Nuremberg trials, they for instance, it was just a whole. It was really not so much a trial as it was, hey, we want to show you how horrible you were.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not defending them, mind you. I'm just saying that don't look upon it as so much a trial as it was a formality.
Right. Well, I'm getting a big kick out of the Republican deniers trying their hardest. I mean, they're pulling muscles, trying to spin this around. Like the other day, McCarthy said, "What did Nancy Pelosi know, and when did she know it?" Like, come on, you can do better than that.
Those people are amazing. They're really amazing.
Yeah, no, it's just beyond the pale.
Well, I've only got one person waiting to come on, and I have to do a whole court thing tomorrow. I wonder if I should even take anybody else but you, and then just.
It's up to you. You're the future Hall of Famer.
Right. No, I'm not going to win it. I believe that Sally Jesse Raphael is going to win it.
And she may well. She had more like common notoriety.
Yeah, but her main notoriety was because of television.
Television, no question about it.
Not because of radio. Although
you got 4 votes in this household.
Yeah.
Did you know if you use a separate email address, you can vote again?
Yeah, I know.
Did I say it?
No, I by the way, I went online and I found out who the nominating committee is. And one of them is Dave Gorab, who was my program director at SiriusXM.
Oh, wow.
So at least I think I probably got a vote there.
You got it in.
He was always a big fan of mine, even though when they got rid of me, they got rid of me, but he was a big fan. And also Walter Sabo, who's a big fan.
Sure.
So we'll have to wait and see. Who knows? But I know all you people are voting out there, but just remember that there are those people in Philadelphia who still have a popular radio program.
Yeah.
And they can go on the air and say, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me, but who knows, I mean, I'm just not expecting it. It would be nice, but then I got to rent a tuxedo.
Oh my.
Yeah, I don't want to show up in a tuxedo.
You mean you don't own one for all the Emmys that you've won?
You know something? I said at one point that if I got a second Emmy, I would go out and buy a tuxedo.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
And I never did.
Yeah.
But I did. I think we did. Did we have to wear? Yeah, we had to wear tuxedos to the Emmys. Yeah.
No kidding.
So I wore I rented my tuxes, and after a while, I said I'm sick and tired of renting tuxes. I almost went to buy one. What?
Where did you have the most artistic freedom? Was it at Sirius simply due to the nature of it not being commercial radio?
Well, I think I had a lot of freedom there. I think the most freedom I've had is any time I was making a station a lot of money.
Yeah, of course.
Then they let you do anything you want to. I could go in and take a crap on the general manager's desk, and they go, "Oh, Alex, cut it out."
Yeah, cut it out. You're such a kidder.
Yeah, I mean, so I think I had a lot of freedom in San Francisco because the show was making millions of dollars a year for the radio station. So that put me on a, let's not give him a bad time. He's the cash cow. Yeah. But SiriusXM, for something where there was no money value involved, I think was the freest I've ever had. I would say for the most part, but I got fired. So how free was I? I simply did what I wanted to do, and they didn't like it, and they got rid of me.
Was there some place that just didn't get you? Just didn't get your style?
I think at SiriusXM there were people there who didn't get me.
Really?
Yeah. There was a guy by the name of Mel Karmazin, who was the guy who discovered Howard Stern and ran Infinity radio stations and hired him away from WNBC, or hired him when he got fired, and made him into a star. okay, by believing in him. And when I went to Sirius XM, I was afraid that, Mel would get rid of me when he came in to be general manager, but quite the opposite. One day I see him in the break room, and I said, Mel, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Alex Bennett. He says, you don't have to introduce yourself, Alex. I'm a big fan. And as long as Mel was there, I had somebody there who understood what I did.
Right.
Okay. The minute Mel left, it was a battle. Because the people that were left didn't understand what I did. They didn't understand my style, or.
Well, your style was hard to categorize, wouldn't you say? I mean, in a way, you kind of played it as it felt. Like you.
Well, thank you. That's a compliment.
No, I see it that way.
But it's a compliment.
You played it as it laid. Whichever way the flow was going, you let it breathe. And as a result, you couldn't be categorized or pigeonholed as a, blankety blank kind of performance.
Well, the most freedom I've had is here.
Well, of course.
But it doesn't really matter to me.
No, I guess not.
It's too easy.
The boss won't fire you here.
It's too easy, Yeah. And but anyway, so listen, we'll talk next week unless I've been thrown out of this apartment. I don't know what we would do if we ever had to move out of this apartment. There's so much crap here that I don't know even where we would put it.
You would need another background for starters.
Another background?
Yeah. Maybe like a basement window or something.
Something like that. Yeah. But I don't think that's going to happen. But
me neither.
But who knows? I mean, I just don't know how. Well, I don't want to get into it. It's just a question of what did we do wrong?
Yeah.
That we should suddenly be the victims. Yeah. So,
I
anyway,
think it'll work out.
Yeah, I hope so. Hey, listen, I love talking to you. You're smart and you're decent and you're cool.
Thanks so much, Alex. It's always a thrill for me.
Well, let's do it again next week, okay?
Okay, great.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Robert Natale. Okay, bye, Robert.
Bye.
There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Robert is disappearing now and going off into the vapor. And let's talk to our citizen panel here, who some of them have been waiting for a while. Thank you all for waiting. Hello, Jeffrey. Hello, Alan. And Tom Yamaguchi, for crying out loud. Love to see you, Tom. What a pleasure.
We're just talking to Robert. Was that pre-recorded?
No.
Oh, it just seemed like you didn't say goodbye to him. This turned on. Okay. Would have been nice for him to join us.
Well, I run the show.
Wow, that's
when you're running the show, you can do it. I had him do it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I wasn't on that night. I watched it later.
Yeah. Well, you're not a big fan of the show anyway. Hello, Jeff, and hello to Tom Yamaguchi. Tom, a long time. Good to see you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah? What's up?
Yes. It's not easy to get on. There's a lot of things going on in my life.
Really? Like what? Anything that you want to talk about, or?
Not here, no.
Well, give me a call and let's talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But anyway, continue. As you were saying.
As I was saying?
Yeah, as you were saying.
Oh, okay. Well, I just, thought I would pop in and see how it would work tonight. And liked hearing what Robert said. One of the things is I was sort of like to, once again, I brought this up before when you brought it up with Jimmy the Greek.
Yeah.
The problem is got into an area where he had no knowledge at all.
Right.
And there's no scientific basis behind what he had to say.
There may not be.
In fact, let me put it this way.
Okay. All right. Continue.
If they were into breeding, they did a terrible job. Because for one thing, the plantation owners were knocking up the female slaves.
Mm-hmm.
So much for that part of the experiment.
Yeah, right.
They didn't know anything about genetics. The more sensible answer is that it's a totally socialization. In other words, this was the avenue that black people, especially black males, were given to succeed in a society.
Yeah, but when you say
it has nothing to do, with any kind of and what we're talking about as far as breeding purposes, there, athletic skills. There's no breeding gene in that.
You don't think that the slave owners, because they bred horses, they bred cattle, that they didn't look upon these people who they thought of nothing more than chattel, okay, for the most part, unless they were a decent person, and it was very hard to find them back then in the South and even today, but that they didn't do some kind of what they considered breeding to try and get a stronger black person?
No, many of them were just bought. They were already born.
Yeah.
And you can build up your body, but you can't pass those genetic characteristics onto your children.
Well, one of the things that it could, you may have a point there. Hold on a second. I just want to see, somebody wrote me some kind of message, and like I've got some problem here or something. What did it say? No, not that. No, yeah. It doesn't.
The Zoom isn't on YouTube.
Oh, see, I did that the other night too. I forgot to put. You're listening to me, folks. It's the radio thing, but I forgot to turn on the.
Yeah, Brian just sent me a text saying it's not on YouTube.
Yeah,
It is on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube, but what was happening? They had a picture of me.
Oh God!
My visual. I did this the other night too, and I don't know why. I'm just getting too old for this, But no, what I was saying is that some of it could be because they were tribes in Africa and they lived under very harsh circumstances, that they also became stronger. And that's, of course, one of the reasons they were probably considered such a fine for the slave owners. Does that make sense?
No.
No. Okay.
No, it doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
I don't think that has anything to do with genetics.
Yeah.
I think it's just that in our society, this was one of the few ways that blacks. In fact, you remember, I'm sure you'll remember this, years ago there was a documentary on NBC, as I remember, and they were talking about basketball, and they were saying that at the time, around the turn of the century, the early 20th century, the most successful basketball players were Jewish, and there was do you remember that?
Yes, I think. Well, I mean, I wasn't around the turn.
But I know. Do you remember because I know we talked about it on the show.
You mean the turn of the last
San
century?
Francisco.
Really? Did I talk about
this?
It?
Was from the 90s.
Oh.
And there was it was a document, and they were talking about that they actually believed that there was something about Jewish men that made them best adapted to playing basketball.
Well, not anymore.
You see, so that sort of like negates the whole argument. It's folklore.
I can't understand. I can't remember saying anything like that, because I don't think I had any knowledge of basketball to that extent.
No, it's just that you saw the documentary that I saw.
Oh, okay.
And you mentioned, I know you saw it because you talked about it on the show.
Oh, okay. So there was a documentary, now when you say the turn of the century, you mean the 1900s? You mean...
Yeah.
I think I might have watched a documentary, and then I was just saying what I saw in the documentary, that they were basically Jewish players. I mean, you didn't have black basketball players back then because of the racism in the country. And the fact that they just weren't allowed into the sport. It's like, they weren't allowed into baseball until Jackie Robinson. So, well, thank you, everybody.
That was my 2 cents.
Yeah, no.
And I did vote for you for the Radio Hall of Fame.
Well, it's good. How many times did you vote, by the way?
So far, just once.
Oh, okay. Well, if you have more than one,
I do have. I have a Gmail account.
Oh, you can do
Comcast account.
Oh, well, then you could vote using those too.
And I vote for Steve Van Zandt too.
Oh, me
He
too.
was running on the other category, a music category.
Steve Van Zandt is?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
voted for him too.
they've actually been pushing him on Sirius.
I just like him because
Steve Van Zandt?
Yeah.
I think more as a musician really than a DJ, but I just voted because I like Bruce
Oh,
Springsteen.
no. I know who you're talking about. I thought you were talking about. There's a radio guy in San Francisco named Van Zandt. Yes, you're talking about Little Stevie. Yeah.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
Yeah. He's very good at that little show he does. You know,
he plays a lot of good like no-name bands that I never heard of.
I mean, he
he
knows his music, obviously.
He really does. I love listening to him when he does the show. I do listen to Sirius for him, Alex. So when he's on, I'll write down the stuff. I got to get this.
But you don't listen to anything else, right?
Sometimes Howard when he talks about the only people I like is I'll be honest. I like Howard and I like you, of course, and I like Steve and I like my music. I like my music, so I always like listen to any of that stuff.
Yeah.
You can listen to music 24/7. Yeah.
Did you try the coffee that I sent you, Tony?
Not yet, but I'm going to make it tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for sending him coffee.
Yeah, French vanilla.
Jeez almighty.
I know.
You know about this, Tom? Tony on coffee? Oh, God.
Oh, Kodak coffee, yes.
Yeah, he doesn't take the coffee very well.
Yeah.
I stay up all night and watch old TV then.
Yeah.
How can I do it? I don't want to watch it later.
Well,
Sometimes I watch Jack Benny. I'll flip it around, Alex. Whatever amuses me. My brother's like, "What year are you in?" 48 right now.
You're in what?
1948. Because usually I'm watching something old. He wants to know what decade in my year. Yeah, because I always have something to watch.
Well, I get stuck on YouTube. I'm like this
YouTube.
It's
like a black hole.
It's like a black hole.
I love it because I can always watch something. Anything I watch.
Well, no, you watch something, and then all of a sudden something pops up next to it.
Yeah, I'm watching that. Here we go.
And before you know it, I've watched a Jack Benny show. I've watched an interview of Letterman with like somebody, like Regis, and then it's something else. I mean, I can go for. I've literally gone for 5 hours just watching.
I'm like you, Alex. I love old news. Like I listen to your old show on the YouTube.
People who I think would not be addicted to YouTube are my business manager, who I didn't think even know what YouTube was, says he's stuck on YouTube. And then anything, like let's say you want to do something, I want to buy comic books. How do I buy comic books? You just put in there buying comic books and all these things come up, tell you how to buy comic books.
I mean, yeah, and these like little talk shows. Like I met somebody at a comic show, this kid called himself Comic Tom. Young kid, and he actually had like a show he was doing on YouTube, like the books he liked. I was like, you know what? I started watching the show we were messaging. Then I went to the New York like 2 years ago. It says, "Oh, it's Comic Time." He says, "Tony." I said, "Yeah, how you doing?" It's like I saw his show on YouTube. He's there with his father, and his father would come on the show and like, "This is what I read, and this is what my sons read." I thought it was cool.
Yeah,
I said,
yeah. So I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing, and doing the show here. I needed to a while back. I needed to figure out how to get pictures from Skype onto the video here. And I went online, and I didn't know how to use this one program, and I went on YouTube, and there are about 10 people telling you how to use it, So, I mean, you can get an education in almost anything.
But I know what I like, Alex? I like the old news. Like, I listened to your old show. I sent it to your messenger from 1975. And you know what I like when you were talking about like New York back then? Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to like remember as a kid because I was like 6. It's like I like when you talk about the old, like, you talk about how New York was. You got to listen. Actually, how do they get that air check? It is like perfectly clear.
You know something? I have gone online and just put in my name and been amazed at what I find.
I found quite a few over the last
stuff
week.
That I didn't know there was even a recording of.
Well, you were bitching about your apartment, the apartment you lived in, about the, I guess whoever ran it, they were doing a bad job because you were really landing on pretty good.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll find TV stuff that I did that I don't have a copy of it. So thank you all for putting it up. So I finally do have a copy of it.
I sent it to you in Messenger. If you get a look, it's perfectly clear.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So do you get if and when you win this prize with the broadcasters, is it like like some of the other big prizes? Do you get like $100,000 or something?
No, you get nothing.
That sucks.
In fact, I think you have to fly yourself to Chicago
They don't even
and
fly
pay
you.
for the
Wow.
tuxedo. You know. So, no. You know, I mean, who knows? What it's not going to
Maybe
happen.
they'll give you a trip to Chicago in the middle of winter.
I don't want to fly to Chicago.
You
Okay.
get the deep dish pizza
I don't
box.
want to wear a tuxedo. So there's a part of me that goes, I don't want to win this goddamn thing.
Oh, come on, we're voting for you like crap. I'm sharing this like mad. You gotta win. This is in the bag. There's no way she wins, Sally. No way.
What do you mean, no way? Because your vote is only 1/25th of the vote.
But we're sharing this like mad. I'm
No,
passing
but
this around
all
like
the
mad.
votes that do that, okay, only
Yeah.
count for 1/25th. The other 24 votes are the members of the nominating committee.
Oh.
Yeah.
They get to decide it then?
And I looked at him and I went, do these people know who I am? You know, I mean, they knew enough of who I was to nominate me, you know. But
Well, maybe we can sway them a little bit.
Yeah, send some
promise them a dream date with Donald Trump or something
no,
like that.
promise them that you'll allow their arms to keep working.
Absolutely.
So what's happening out in San Francisco, Tom? You got the whole thing with Newsom.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's.
How does that look?
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that that he won't get recalled. I think they certainly have a better campaign than Gray Davis did. I think Gray Davis. Well, Gray Davis also started with a big liability. He wasn't that popular.
Yeah.
I think Newsom has a lot more support than Davis did, and
I think
especially union
didn't they
support.
say that Gray Davis's biggest problem was he didn't think he was going to be thrown out, and so he didn't do that much to prevent it from happening. Am I?
I think they were just confused as to how to respond. And, they weren't sure whether to put up a candidate just in case he was recalled, and that was why the lieutenant governor Bustamante went ahead and jumped in and put his name on the ballot, and he came in second, actually, as I remember.
Yeah.
But he also just tore the party apart over that too. So he ended up ruining his own career.
Here's what's so terrible about this whole thing. They go to vote. Correct me if I'm wrong. They go to vote, and what they're voting on is the recall of Gavin Newsom. So you vote, yeah, I want to recall him, I don't want to recall him. All right? Then if you want to recall him, you vote for somebody. In other words, it's all on the same ballot.
Yeah,
Right,
so-
exactly.
And
Yeah,
then
because-
the
yeah.
person who wins, and right now there's something like what, 55 candidates, something like that.
I think there's only 40 this
This time
election.
there were 135 in that case.
Yeah, 135 in the
There's
first
no
one.
Democrats running except Newsom.
And it isn't like you have to get over 50% of the vote in order to win. You
No.
can get 5% of the vote and win if nobody has 5%, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So that way you really get the worst possible human being that you can find in there as governor. Right now I hear that the guy who's going up against me in the
Larry Elder.
Larry Elder, who's going up against me in the Hall of Fame category, that he's in the lead. I mean, not against, he's in the lead
John
among
all the candidates.
all
that
the
are running.
candidates. Yeah.
John Cox,
Yeah.
I heard, was in the lead for the Republican Party.
Really? Well, the latest that if you listen to Fox, it's Larry Elder.
Yeah, I think John Cox really turned his own campaign when he came the first day, announced his campaign, and he had a grizzly bear chained up.
Yes, yes. But here's the thing, though. I mean, all Elder has to do is get a slight 1/10% more than the person who comes in second. In order to become governor. And that's what's so ridiculous about it. That's what's so horrible about the whole process.
I hate recalls.
Well,
you should
now
only.
let's think of it. When I came on tonight on YouTube, they played commercials. They had Senator Elizabeth Warren actually doing a commercial against the recall.
Against the recall.
Against the recall. Yeah. Vote no on the Republican recall is their slogan. So
right,
there's
but you don't want to.
There's a lot of commercials. There's a lot of big name Democrats that are appearing in commercials and being quite vocal about the recall. So I think that's a big difference between now and then.
A lot of money is being spent in this.
What's that?
A lot of money is being spent in this.
Do you see any ads for Caitlyn Jenner?
No.
Imagine.
Really?
Huh?
No.
What'd you say, Tony?
Is there really running ads or no?
She's running.
Is that Bruce Jenner? I still can't get
That's
over
Bruce.
that.
That's the former Bruce Jenner.
When my mother saw that, she thought he had a breakdown. I says, Mom, she always remembered him on the Wheaties box. I mean, I'm not making fun. I still can't get over that. It's like, holy moly.
What do you mean you can't get over it?
Well, because we always remember him from the '76 or something Olympics. Remember he won all those gold?
Yeah.
My mother's like, she was always confused with it. I guess she couldn't understand it.
Well, I don't know what's not to understand.
Because she thought he was still a guy. I was trying to explain it to one time. It was going over her head. I couldn't do it. My sister tried.
Let's go to Tom because he knows better about the nomenclature of this sort of thing.
Well, one way to look at it is that Jenner has always identified has a female gender identity.
Yeah, personally, in his private life,
was not open about it.
Okay.
So when she decided to be open about her real, true gender identity, then she was able to live full time as a woman.
I guess it was more like she was so surprised with the time because she just remembers him as the athlete, I guess. And as I was trying to explain it to someone, my sister, but it was going over her head because she's like, I don't understand. So what does it mean then? I said, well, And then after a while,
I can't completely grasp what goes through somebody's mind like Jenner's in such a process because obviously I don't have that situation.
But you do have that situation. You have a male gender identity. It just happens to match your body. But
You
feel that you are a male. Like I feel as a male. If you look at my name, you notice I put my personal pronouns there.
Yeah. Why? He and
because
him.
I feel that people should be able to identify their personal pronouns, and so the other people can understand and not misgender someone.
Why'd you put down he/him?
Because those are my personal pronouns.
Those are your personal pronouns.
Those are my preferred personal pronouns.
Well, those would be my pronouns too, wouldn't they?
If you identify as male or he or him, then you would you could say these are my personal pronouns.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're gender binary, you could say my personal pronouns are they, them.
They, them. Or how about he, she, or them, I'm kidding. My head's starting to spin.
Well, there are people who do that too, and that's where I get confused.
You see, I mean, the thing, I've mentioned this on any number of occasions. The thing that I find kind of amazing is that in my life, I've known quite a few transgender people. I always like to brag that I knew all three transgenders that are sung about by Lou Reed in Walk on the Wild Side. And the most female of them in presence was Candy Darling, who was just gorgeous, and a lovely person and a lovely woman. And when she would walk into a room, I would kiss her hello, and respect what she wanted to be. The other two were Holly Woodlawn, who was kind of goofy and did kind of a comedic character, almost a satire of women in a way. And the other one was Jackie Curtis, who used to walk around wearing a dress with a 5-day growth. You know, so I was quite aware of this and knew these kind of people and hung out with them and even did stuff with them with some of the Andy Warhol people. And so when all of a sudden we're presented with this whole thing about transgenders, although in those days we didn't call them transgenders, we had another term.
Well, one thing is, you think that, when you think of Jackie Curtis,
Mm-hmm.
you might be a more appropriate term would be transvestite, and maybe
Well,
we say
transvestite
Hollywood
was the term that I remember. Okay.
Well, transvestite is different from gender identity.
Well,
I mean,
in the case
you can identify as male, have a male gender identity,
Mm-hmm.
and still have a desire to dress up in women's clothing.
Well, in the case of Candy Darling, this was a person who looked very much the woman, you know.
And did she ask that you refer to her as a she? Or
I
her?
always did, and I didn't. She
Okay.
didn't ask me to. I was very happy to do it. I did that because my feeling was that she carried it off so perfectly and so wonderfully, and with such class, that she deserved to be called she. You know,
she had. Well, that you did that as out of respect
out
for
of
her,
absolute
and that is her was her identity.
Yeah. In the case of Hollywood Lawn, Hollywood Lawn was getting laid a lot by women. Okay, so it wasn't a sexual identity, but it was. I think it was like a cross-dressing thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of Jackie Curtis, I could never figure that one out. I mean, if you're going to wear a dress, at least shave. I mean, but I never understood that one. But Candy Darling, and she asked me on her deathbed, she wanted me to come and videotape her, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. But I just adored Candy. She was just a wonderful person who carried herself with great grace and dignity. So if anyway you want to know what she looked like, I guess you could probably go online and find her. She was one of the Andy Warhol superstars.
Right.
But so was Hollywood Lawn, and so was Jackie Curtis. So, but it so when you talk about Caitlyn Jenner, I mean, I think Caitlyn Jenner makes a pretty bad looking woman, but that's just my opinion. But
she's not. She's a lot older than she used to be.
Yes, yes.
I mean, I was a better looking person when I was younger too.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering how good he could pull it off even when he was younger. But he was, he was dressing up at home and everything. I mean, supposedly, what's her name, Jenner, Mama Jenner, was. She knew he was doing it. He was doing it all the time around the house, privately, And that rumor, by the way, was running around. And when I first heard it, I just didn't believe it. I thought it was just some kind of, one of those kind of urban legends, okay? And it wasn't an urban legend. It turned out to be real, So.
Well, I'm happy for her.
Oh, I'm happy for her too. Listen. It's fine. I think people should be allowed to live the life they want to live and not have to do it with anybody complaining about how they're doing it. And like John Larkin, we know, is voting for Caitlyn Jenner because he believes that too. Right, John?
Yeah, no, I mean, I respect anybody that, goes through a sex change or something like that. I totally respect that.
Well, this isn't exactly a sex change.
Well, I mean, anyone that
Yeah, because a sex change is a real commitment.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But you don't just do that because it's like getting a tattoo or getting a pierce your ears or something.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but just because somebody like Caitlyn Jenner looks like a woman and dresses like a woman and maybe gets some breast put on them or whatever, still doesn't mean that they don't still have sex heterosexually. Am I right or wrong about that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know.
No, of course.
I really don't know. I think it depends on the individual.
There's a bar down the street that it's just this dive bar on Turk Street called.
Listen, you live in the Tenderloin, every street corner in that.
Charlie's, but straight people go in there, but a lot of trannies hang out there, and there's a lot of trannies that are heterosexual. They just
now we know where John's getting laid.
Yeah,
I'm not into the. I don't like the beards.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good.
Let me ask you something, Tom. How do you feel? I saw they changed the gay rainbow flag.
Because they added the pink, the transgender.
They did a thing on the side, which breaks up the rainbow in kind of a triangle. And I can't remember what's in there. There's some lettering or something, but I so liked that rainbow flag that I kind of consider it destroyed.
It's a shame that Gilbert Baker, who designed the original rainbow flag, it's a shame that he died a few years ago, because he would be the person really to comment. I think he would approve.
Do you think you?
To tell you the truth, I think that anything that expands, because the whole point of the rainbow flag is is a message of inclusivity. Everyone is being included, and if you're adding transgendered people to that, you're increasing the inclusivity. I would say he probably would have a problem with it.
Didn't Harvey Milk's lover develop that flag?
I don't know.
I don't think Gilbert Baker was involved with Harvey Milk.
Okay, somebody told me a long time ago that Harvey Milk's partner, when Harvey died, came up with the gay flag.
Here we go. Let me show you here.
No, I think the flag was even developed before Harvey Milk died.
You guys can't see it because it's on the thing here, but here to everybody, it's what I'm talking about. Is you've got the rainbow flag. Basically, this is the old rainbow flag, and then what they've done is they've put this triangle, half a triangle. You see what I'm?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, and then it's got white, it's got pink, it's got blue, it's got brown, it's got black. What is that? Trying to be all inclusive?
I've never seen that. I drive through San Francisco a lot.
Well, it's the new official flag.
I've never seen it. That's
I don't know, if there was a meeting of gays that got together and said this is the new flag, but that's the current flag, and I just always liked the rainbow flag. I thought it said something very important about us and about what's right and what's wrong, And I just
What was the musical that had the rainbow flag in it?
What do you mean? What musical?
There was a musical, something about a rainbow.
It was?
Never mind.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, don't bring it up unless you know what it was.
Well, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I mean, the Wizard of Oz? No.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Wizard of Oz had a rainbow front flag in it.
I'm not saying they had a flag. Never mind.
They didn't have this kind of flag in there.
Okay, I believe that. What was the musical? Something Over the Rainbow.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a song from Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But there was no rainbow flag in it.
I didn't say there was a flag in there.
She went over. She wanted to go over the rainbow because there was a rainbow there, because that's where life would be better for her.
And you know what I learned from Shecky, Alex? He said the year The Wizard of Oz came out, I could be wrong, that was the greatest year for motion pictures.
Oh yeah, no question about it. That was the. If you go back and look at a lot of great movies all coming out in a single year.
Really?
That was the year of Citizen Kane. Well, Citizen Kane was actually a year later when it was finally released. But that was Gone with the Wind came out that year. you know.
He said Wizard of Oz wasn't that big when he read when it came out.
No.
It wasn't that exciting.
Wizard of Oz was a huge book for many years. It was.
Well, they're huge books. I mean, L. Frank Baum, who was the creator of it, also was the guy who owned the movie rights. He put out movies of the Wizard of Oz long before the one we know.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and they weren't that big a success, but he did Ozma from Oz and a whole bunch of the books as movies, as silent films.
Didn't it come out like 39 or 40 or something
That's what we were just saying, 1939. It was a great year for movies.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't listen.
Yeah.
If I'm correct, it was the big first color
film, yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Well, I mean, the first big color film.
No, it wasn't.
No, well, it was bigger.
Becky Sharp was the first color film, and 3-color Technicolor, and it was 1936, and it was a major production. The Wizard of Oz was directed by the same guy who did Gone with the Wind.
Really?
He directed both pictures in the same year. Talk about hitting a home run. Yeah.
What was his name?
What's his name? Oh, God. Victor Fleming.
Victor Fleming. Okay.
Yeah, Victor Fleming, and he directed both The Wizard of Oz and
I did not know that.
yeah. Although the Over the Rainbow sequence was done when she was singing Black and White and so on. That was done by what's his name? The women's director, the guy who the women loved having him direct them. But he did it because Fleming had to go do Gone with the Wind, and I think he then left Gone with the Wind and ran right over and did The Wizard of Oz.
So here, if you go to the rainbow flag for the LGBT community, it was adopted in the same year that Harvey Milk was murdered, 1978.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, Tom was saying that he thought it was before that. So
one thing, it was November '78 that Milk and Moscone were killed.
Come on, Tom. You don't
and so if it appeared at the Pride Parade that year, that was back in the previous June.
Couldn't have appeared at the Pride Parade.
Why not?
Why?
I guess, was there a Pride? I guess there was.
Oh yeah.
Harvey Milk is seen in a car during the Pride Parade.
Yeah. So the next year, I mean, when he died that year, they came out with the flag. I didn't start seeing it till a few years later, though. I don't think it made its way across the country.
November 1978. Do you know the date?
What? No. Why should I?
Not the exact day. It was later. It was a week after Jonestown.
Was it really?
Really?
Yeah, it was a week after Jonestown.
Yeah.
I didn't know Jonestown was. Wow. It was November 27th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
wasn't living in the Bay Area at the time, but
I was.
You were from Hawaii, Tom. I thought you were from Hawaii.
Why do you think he was from Hawaii?
I don't know.
Boy,
watching the show too many times.
You watch this show in a coma, don't you? Boy.
That's why your numbers are so high.
What were you going to say, John?
I was at the White Night riots out in front of City Hall. And that was in '79. That when Dan White was found not guilty of murder but manslaughter.
Yeah.
I was living in the city, and I walked down and watched it. I mean, I didn't get involved in it.
That was so weird. Guy goes in, kills 2 people, the mayor of San Francisco and Harvey Milk, who's a city councilman.
Or supervisor. County supervisor.
Was he a supervisor?
Murdered them in cold blood.
Yeah, county supervisor, yes.
Yep.
In cold blood, in absolute cold blood, and gets away with it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Twinkie. He used the Twinkie defense.
That was the Twinkie defense. Well, it was diminished capacity.
From eating too much junk food.
There was way too much thought in how he snuck into the building to pass security through an open window. This Twinkie defense was bullshit.
Yeah, but it worked. It worked, and I think it worked partially because of homophobia that still existed very badly at the time. Wouldn't you agree, Tom? and that it was hard to find a jury that didn't have a certain amount of homophobia going for them.
I don't know. I think he just might have, just put out a good defense that he was really depressed.
And a lot of cops in this.
What finally happened to Dan White?
He
committed suicide.
Committed suicide. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
So in a way, you could say he really didn't get off.
No. No. He committed suicide. I think he committed suicide out of pure guilt.
I think he committed suicide to save his family. I think that Moscone was mobbed up, or at least connected somehow to the mob. No. Harvey Milk was the most powerful big gay person.
Why are you saying he was mobbed up?
Because he had mob connections.
How do you? You know something? He was Italian. Is that the reason why?
That's what I don't know. It's what I heard.
Yeah, I didn't hear he was mobbed up.
No, he did not have mob connections.
He was a pretty liberal. No. He was a pretty liberal mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I will Google him.
It's going to say mobbed up in Google. Yeah.
No.
That whole notion.
Okay, well, so I think that the gays were gaining power, and Dan White thought that he might be assassinated or killed, or whatever you want to call it, by the gays.
No, that wasn't the reason he did it all. There was a motivation there, wasn't there, Tom? I think that he and the mayor had words, or that the mayor was getting rid of him. That was it.
Yeah. Basically, White had quit his job, and
as a supervisor.
Then he went back to try to get it back. And when Moscone turned him down, that's when he pulled out the gun and shot him.
Now, when he went and...
I guess he shot Moscone first and then Milk second.
Do you think he shot Milk because Milk was just in the way? Or do you think... Or did he seek out Milk?
He sought him out.
Oh, okay.
He hated Milk because Moscone was inclined to give him the job back, and Milk said, no way, don't do that, because it'll take the power away from the liberal.
So that being the case, are we considering not considering that it's a hate crime? That it wasn't a hate crime? It was just that he looked at these two people.
There was no such thing as hate crimes back in those days.
Wasn't there?
No, there was no law.
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really.
It was a terrible day for San Francisco.
Lost
a mayor. They lost Harvey Milk, who was very important to his community. Really represented the gays in San Francisco very well before City Hall, and made them actually a political power.
Yep.
Which was very important, because if you've got political power, you're going to get your way.
Dianne Feinstein's career started that day. Really well. She became the mayor when Moscone was murdered.
Well, there was the old joke running around: why is she so much why is she so much for gun control? If it weren't for guns, she wouldn't be senator. That was a
Will Durst joke, as I remember.
Yeah. But I mean, it was. Did I hear that one half of the Bay Bridge is now the Willie Brown Bridge?
Oh, you were talking about that last night.
Yeah,
it's actually the western span.
Yeah, but why do you name it after somebody who's still alive?
I don't know.
He got that thing built after it broke. After the earthquake. He got the money to get
but it's the eastern span that got rebuilt, not the western span.
That's right, John.
And what span is the Willie Brown Bridge?
Side that's named for him, I think.
Right. Yeah.
But he had nothing to do with that.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, I don't know.
And there's a guy who was actually campaigning to have the bridge named for Emperor Norton.
Yeah. Well.
Emperor Norton.
Yeah, because. Well, I don't know if we have time to go into the story of Emperor Norton.
It's one of the wonderful.
But basically, this Emperor Norton had decreed that there should be a bridge built from San Francisco to what was then called Goat Island, which is now known as Yerba Buena Island. And so that's the reason why this guy felt.
Well, the thing is that Emperor Norton was a character. I guess it's the best way to describe him, who dressed in finery with a plume and everything, dressed in his own made-up military outfit, and said he was what, the Emperor of Mexico?
Emperor of the United States, Protector of Mexico.
Protector of Mexico. And
and he actually printed his own money.
Yep.
And he insisted on his money being accepted everywhere. And people, at one time he went to ride on I guess the Southern Pacific Railroad train, and the conductor gave him a bad time, and he complained to the president, and the president of the railroad says, "From now on, you can ride for free."
Yeah. But he was a real character, and
he was a real character,
and he lived in San Francisco, and there are a lot of little references to him in San Francisco culture. And this went around. When was this? The turn of the century, maybe earlier. It
was
than that.
it was more like the 1850s, 60s, 70s, like that.
San Francisco is famous for creating wackos. Another wacko, kind of, was Lily Hitchcock Coit, who built Coit Tower, which she built in honor of the policeman, because she used to like to dress up as a fireman. She used to like to dress up as a man and go to these male soirees and just hang out. And she built the Coit Tower in order to honor the fireman who put out the fire during the 1906 earthquake. Unfortunately, she says it was meant to look like a nozzle, but it looks pretty much like a giant penis.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's a lot of things that look like a giant penis to you lately, Alex.
No, when I was a kid,
talking about Amazon.
When I was a kid, I used to live on Filbert Street in an apartment, and my bedroom looked at Coit Tower. And I remember after World War II, when the lights came back on, because you didn't have to have blackouts and everything, and the light came on, here was this beautiful tower all lit up looking at me, and every night I would talk to it. I had an ongoing relationship with it, and it wasn't until I studied Freud that I understood why. It was just a giant penis to me. But anyway.
Well, there you go. Now we got the bottom line.
Yeah, now you got the
I always heard the widow. I always heard the lady that built Coit Tower. I'm looking it up now. Her husband was a firefighter.
I don't think so.
I'm looking it up.
I don't believe so. I don't remember.
That's what I've always heard. Hell, I don't know.
In fact, I don't even know she was married.
Yeah, that's my memory, but she wasn't married.
She wasn't married.
Huh.
Alex, did you go to high school in North Beach, or?
Yeah, no, I went to grade school in North Beach. I went to high school in Marin County.
Is that another one of the weirdos that came out of San Francisco, the Alex Bennett?
What elementary school did you go to?
I went to Garfield School.
Is it still there?
Well, it's something else now, but it was a building right across the street from my...
What street was it on?
It was on Filbert Street.
Filbert and what?
Filbert, almost right at the top of Filbert Street.
Oh, up by Coit Tower?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Don't you wish you still had that house?
Well, it was an apartment.
Well, according to Wikipedia, real quick, the Coit Tower Memorial Tower was dedicated to volunteer firefighters who had died in San Francisco 5 major fires. Okay. So I guess it wasn't.
Okay.
I've got to tell you, the people that
but did it say she was married?
No.
No,
okay. She wasn't married.
Anyway, hey, listen, we're running out of time.
Hey, Alex, Garfield's still there.
Garfield School?
Yeah.
It's called something else, though.
No, it isn't. It's Garfield
Alex Bennett Academy.
It's Garfield what?
Elementary school.
Elementary school. Okay. Well, still there after all these years. Hey, listen, I got to go. Jeff, great having you here. Alan, good having you here. Tom, love to see you more often. You really added to the show tonight, and I thank you for it. John Larkin, thank you. And Tony, thank you. Everybody, give a big wave goodbye, and I'll give a big wave goodbye at you. Okay, there they go, folks. That's our rather small citizen panel for tonight, because we don't have a lot of our regulars on tonight, like Brian and Charlie and so on and so forth. But anyway, be that as it may, I'll see you tomorrow night if I still have an apartment. I'll see you tomorrow night at 10:30, same time, same station in life. In the meantime, as always, if you see her, tell her I love her, okay? And by the way, if you haven't been vaccinated, what the hell's keeping you? Bye.